identical color. Now, what I can do is, since this is going to stitch after the mesh, I could make sure that, you know, it stitches seamlessly. So to do that, I probably want to ungroup this just to make sure that I'm connecting to the right object. So I'll right click and then groups, ungroup with my left click. And now here's something that I want you to notice, and this is the same way in regular Studio, only it's easier to see in Studio Next. I want you to zoom in over here on the object window and look at the mesh object, this one here, and you see the red dot right there? That red dot is like right here, okay? And that means that this mesh object is ending at that red dot. But here's the thing, if it's ending on that inside box, then we want the small box to be next in line. Well, this object here is the small one. So I should move it up, and I will in a minute. But I want you to see something that could really confuse you, both in regular Studio and in Studio Next. Like I said, they're both the same. Since this mesh has a hole, if I were to, okay, here's the outer box, and let me zoom out just so you could see the outer box is selected. If I were to just say, oh, I'm just going to right click and create connection, yes, it's showing that it's, going to be connected to some object that has a hole in it. So this is the outer box. If I were to right click on this and say create connection with my left mouse, this is what it makes. It makes a bunch of tiny connection stitches right over our beautiful mesh background. Because, remember, that's what a connection is. A connection is a bunch of tiny little stitches. And so we can't have that. So that basically just tells you that we never should have made a connection in the first place between the mesh and this outer box, because if we would have looked closer, we would have seen that the mesh ends on this inside area, and you can't be stitching over your mesh to get to the outer outline. So, and that could be very confusing, because here's what will really confuse you is if I were to click on the mesh, and yes, if I look down here, it's showing that the inner hole of the mesh is ending at that spot. If you look up here, this is showing that the mesh as a whole is ending in this red dot. But if you click on edit, it's not going to show the mesh as ending on this inner spot. It's going to show the mesh as ending on the outside up here. But it's really not. And I think Embird does that because, so if I click on this box and click edit, there's no nodes here for the hole. So can't really show you that the mesh is ending here. Yes, there is a yellow circle here, but look at where the ending symbol is. This is the symbol of ending. We're in the mesh. it's showing you that the mesh is ending up here, but it's really not. It's ending down here. And if you hit the shortcut keys, okay, the key home will take you to the first node. So, and let me zoom in just a little bit, just to this area. So if I click home, the red dot still stays red up there. If I click end, the red dot still stays up there. It doesn't go down here, even though we know it ends, the mesh ends down here. But there's no nodes down here, so it can't tell you that. Now, is this yellow circle giving you a hint that it's ending there and not really here? Here is my take on these yellow circles. And I made this little document to try to show everything. This is the object window that would normally be on the right hand side, and then these two windows are, this window I'm editing this triangle fill object, I'm in edit mode, and then in this window I'm in edit mode for the mesh object. You don't see the bottom of it, you just see the top and the hole. And so let's talk about what I wrote over here, and I hope you can read this. I'll zoom in. Let me zoom in. And then I'll just have to scroll down if somebody needs to see these pictures down here. But for the yellow circles in edit mode, so you only see the yellow circles when you're in edit mode. So when you click this edit button. So what I'm seeing are there's, outlines, there's solid fills, and then there's fills or mesh with holes in them. And that's what we have here with this mesh. So with outlines, what I'm seeing is, first of all, there's two types of outlines. There's open outlines that just have a beginning and an end in a different spot. So a line or an S or a curve or anything, it's not closed. So this outline is an open outline. And this is a manual stitch down here. But at any rate, for open outlines, I assume that these yellow circles are the end node. So this is the ending node. So I started here. This is my beginning node when I drew this line, when I created this line. And this was my ending node. And so they have a yellow circle there. Even though I'm not editing this line, I'm editing this filled triangle, but all these yellow circles show up everywhere. Even on the fill object, there's a yellow circle up there, but we'll get to that in a minute. So for the open outlines, the yellow circles are the end node. For closed outlines, okay, that means it begins and ends in the same spot, like this outline around this inner box here, this inner mesh, this hole. Okay, I put an outline there, if you recall. And so that's a closed outline. Well, I'm assuming that these yellow circles on this closed outline, here it is right here. You can barely see it in this picture, but it's right here. These yellow circles are the start and the ending node because it's a closed outline. So technically it's still showing the end of the outline, but the start point is there too. Now with solid fills, like this triangle is just a solid fill, I assume that these yellow circles are the ending node of the, the fill mesh object. So for this, I know you can't see it, but the yellow circle is up here at the top. When I created this object, I started here, I clicked once there, clicked here, and then clicked up here again. Well, I kind of clicked here, and then I hit close shape, this close shape icon. But my last node is up here. So my first node is here, and my last node is here. So when I originally created it, and if I would have just hit enter at that point, Embird would have made this my ending actual stitch as well. It would have ended the stitching up here. But I decided, like we all do, I don't want it to end up there. I want it to end down here. So I right-clicked on this node, and I chose Place Fill Endpoint here. Fill Endpoint, okay, is different than the ending node of this object. And that's where we can get confused, you know. The object still ended up here with the node, like when I clicked, and this was the last node. So that's where the yellow circle is, where the last node is, okay, on this fill object. But I have it stitching. If I did a sew sim of this, it would sew sim like this all the way down, and it would end right here. This is the symbol for the ending actual stitch, and Embird calls it the fill endpoint. The fill endpoint. That would be kind of your tip off that it's an actual stitch, kind of. So let me just read this. So with solid fills, like the triangle, I assume that these yellow circles up here are the ending node of that closed fill mesh object. I got a typo. Of that closed fill mesh object. That's the ending node. The yellow circle is not necessarily, I should put in the word necessarily. Well, no, I'll just leave it like this because of the way I wrote it. The yellow circle is not the fill endpoint that we may have assigned when we chose place fill endpoint here, meaning this point. This is not where the yellow circle is going to be. It's going to be up here where that last node is. And incidentally, when you first open up the edit screen, when you first hit edit, and you know how there's a shortcut key for the first node of the object, and there's a shortcut key for the last node of the object. Well, the shortcut key for the first node of the object is the home key. So if you hit home, then the first node of the object will be red. If you hit end, then the last node of the object will turn red. Well, in this case, when I hit home and end, they're both the same node because I started and ended in the same spot. And when you first open up your edit, when you first click on the edit button, the node that's highlighted in red is the end node. So Notice how I'm saying node for like the vector node and shape, and Embird is saying fill end point for like where the stitches are going to end, if that helps. And you have this line here. Sometimes this line, like I said, when I first made this ending line here was up here. So everything was up here when I first created it. You know, the end node and the fill end point was up here. So this line was up here along with the yellow circle. So I believe when you first create it, though, you don't see the yellow circle. I'm trying to think now. But at any rate, if you come back to it, you'll see it. So this is all what I'm gathering. Now, when you read down here, it says the yellow circle, same triangle, is not the fill endpoint that we may have assigned when we chose place fill endpoint here. That's what I did here. You can find that fill endpoint when you are in edit mode like we are now. We see the symbol here. You can also find it if you show jumps when applicable. So if there's a jump from this object to the next object, in other words, there's no connection here. This is an actual jump, so it ties off, jumps, makes a tie onto this outline. So you could see it then. And you can also see it when you generate stitches, because the fill endpoints are green. So if you look like down at this manual stitch, I generated the stitches on this. And I also generated the stitches on this outline. You could see them here. The outer outline, I didn't generate the stitches. But at any rate, on this manual stitch, I generated the stitches, and the start point, you can see up at the top here, is short little green, sloppy green, like a felt tip pen or something. It's short. It's a real short little segment. That's the start point of this manual stitch. And then the end point is a longer green line, which I thought was interesting. And then also there's the yellow circle there showing the ending of this. So that would be the actual ending stitch, which, you know, is a little confusing because you got the green and the yellow, but I guess the green just comes into play when you generate stitches. So since I generated the stitches on this outline, if you look real close, you can see there's a touch of green on that yellow circle there. And there's a yellow circle. So who knows, maybe because this outline was a closed outline, they only show the beginning little green short segment of it, that it's starting here, and then they just have the yellow circle showing that it's the end node of this outline because it's closed. So you basically know it starts and ends in the same spot. I mean, once you get into the theory of this and see how Embird is thinking, it does start to make sense. And then you get down to the fills or mesh with holes, and that's where you can really get confused. And I got confused, and I'm still a little fuzzy on this. So I experimented with this. I actually took this outline out. I deleted it. So there was no outline in this hole at all. And even when I took the outline out, there was still a yellow circle here. And that made me realize that this yellow circle is also signifying the end of this mesh object, the actual stitching end, I think, because what else could it be? It's still there. I'd have to show you. I'll go back to the screen and I'll delete the outline and show you. But at any rate, here's what I'm thinking, why they have to put something on this ending spot for the mesh. They have to put this yellow circle here because since we don't have nodes on a whole, since we don't have nodes on a whole, like down here, I'm in edit mode for this mesh, okay? So you can see that my ending node is here, but it's confusing because up with the fill stitch, the triangle, this ending node was the ending of my fill stitching. Well, this isn't the ending of my mesh, it's the end of this fill object that I created. It is the ending node. So I'm thinking, well, why is this line here and why isn't it here? Because this is where the actual stitching ends. And again, I think it's because we don't have nodes on the holes of fill and mesh objects. So what are they supposed to do, you know? So I think that's why they put a yellow circle there. And I'll show you what I mean when I delete the outline. You'll see the yellow circle is still there for the mesh. So at any rate, since we don't have nodes on a hole within a mesh fill object, if the mesh fill's actual ending stitch is on the hole's edge, which we know it is because of the red dot in here, see the red dot right there? That's on the inside of this mesh. And if you go down to the object window, here's the fill and here's its hole, and there's the ending stitch. It's got the red dot there and it also has it up here. So we know it ends here. So if the fill mesh's actual ending stitch is on the hole's edge, then there is a yellow circle on that area when in edit mode, and also a red dot in the same area on the object window right here. So that can be very confusing. So that's why I was saying, I don't know if I said it yet, but to see if we can make a connection between either of these two outlines and the mesh, it's best just to ungroup the two outlines and see which one is the closest to where the mesh is ending and which one we could hide, you know, the connection stitches, or not even have a connection stitch. In our case, we don't even need one because this inner outline starts in the same spot where this mesh ends. It's the same exact node, so we didn't even need a connection. It just seamlessly flowed. And we could create that scenario ourselves by just right-clicking on a node and say, you know, place start, what would it say exactly? Place start point here because it's an outline. Place start point here, something like that. So let me go show you what I meant when I said even if I delete this outline, the yellow circle is still there. So let me go back. I'm going to delete this triangle because I just did that in this line for purposes for the video. Okay. So right now, and I made this window really, really big. Let me scroll it back. Here is our inner outline, and you can see there's no, well, let me make sure that I'm not jumping ahead in the video because I might not have gotten to this point yet. So let me check and make sure. One sec. Okay, so I just watched the rest of the video, and I haven't showed you exactly how we're gonna connect the mesh yet. So bear with me. I just want to prove to you that this yellow circle stays there even if we have this inner outline gone. And then once I show you that, we'll continue on with the video. So here I am, and back at the screen, and let's see, it looks like I've already moved this object up into place, this inner object. I moved it up. So, but I'm just going to delete it. Okay, so it's gone. So now the only thing we have is the mesh object. Okay, and here's the hole in it. And we have the outer outline, this outer outline, and then just this manual stitch that I think I made it later on in the video. I'll just, I'll delete that too, just so you don't get confused on all these lines. So I'm showing jumps right now. I have this showing the jumps, and I'm in vector view, so they look like this. They look pink, but if I go into 3D, they're not going to show because nothing is generated. But in 3D, they're, I'll just go ahead and generate it. Control G will generate as well as hitting this bucket. Okay, so now you can see the jump is small. It's dotted. It's real small. So if I go back into vector view, you know, you can see everything, but there's the jump. So basically what's happening is, you know, the mesh is stitching. It's ending here on this red dot over here that you see down here, and you see it up here. It's the mesh is ending here, and then it ties off and jumps over. And like I said, you know, since I generated the stitches, you can see little green down here. So, and you see green up there. Let me go into, let's see if it's in 3D. You can kind of see it in 3D. It's very small. Okay, see it there. If I go into vector mode, you can barely see it. In 3D, there it is there. And then up here, I thought I saw it as well. A little bit of green, yeah. So you can see up here that, you know, I have the mesh clicked, and you can see it's got a very small green mark up there, and then down here it looks like it's a little bigger, longer. A little bit, I guess. I'm not sure. But, so that's where the mesh is ending. And so if I hit edit, now let me zoom out and I'll hit edit mode on the mesh. So I'm going to hit edit up here and you'll see the yellow circle. Okay, there's a yellow circle there. And then there's one up here, and here's this ending symbol. Well, this is the ending. This isn't where the mesh is ending. This is, if I click on this node, you know, like I said, when you click the edit button, it's always the last node that's highlighted in red. If I grab that and pull it out, you know, that's my ending node. And this is the beginning node. If I zoom in, you can see that's the beginning node. And, you know, it's the ending node, but it's not where the mesh is ending. So that's what I wanted to show you. I'm just going to hit close edge up here. That's why I wanted to show you that even with, let me hit enter, and I'll zoom out with the page down. So even though I erased that small outline, I'm still seeing that yellow circle when I'm in edit mode. Here I'm in edit mode again for the mesh. And so that's what led me to believe that, well, Embird just, maybe it's because they can't, now I'm in 3D, so you don't see those green things or anything. I'm not in vector. I can see the green up there. I don't see it here. And, you know, maybe because this is covering it, or because I haven't generated, I'm not sure. You know, you can see this green might stand for the generated outline. That's right, it is. See, I'm even getting confused. So this outline is generated. If I just hit edit and then hit enter, it'll erase the stitches. And then you wouldn't have to go to, you know, wherever it is, object, erase stitches. It's in a different spot now, but at any rate, so now when I hit edit mode on the mesh, now nothing is generated, and I hit edit mode, I don't see any green anywhere. So again, I'm learning too. So the reason why the green was gone down here, but it was showing up there, was because that green was standing for the outline that had generated stitches on it. There was nothing that had generated stitches down here, not even the mesh. So it's all these symbols and these little things, it can really make you crazy, but if you get into their head of how they're thinking, then after a while it'll probably get better and better. I do kind of wish that a mesh with a hole would show this ending, this actual ending stitch, say in a different color, a different colored circle, like maybe a bigger pink circle or something. I don't know. I'm going to request that, but I could be wrong in everything that I'm assuming here, but I'm on the right track in most instances, I believe, and at least it'll give everybody else out there a chance to mull it all over in their head and so on. And stick with it, because, you know, if you keep with the program, it'll get better and better and clearer in your head. So anyways, let's get back to the video. Let me Control C to get my objects back. So this is what your design is going to look like when you're all said and done, just so you know. But let's get back to the video. You just want to be really cognizant of what's going on in that object window, of where the dot is. So this is the mesh. Let me just hit the check mark. And I'm just going to generate it again, just so we can make sure we have our same bearings going on. So this is wrong. You can't have a bunch of stitches going through your mesh. So that means that let's try, I mean, we could do either one of two things. First of all, we have to get rid of the connection. So hit delete when you select the connection. And you see the scissors. So the scissors were there before. That means that these are not connected, that there's a jump, meaning the mesh will tie off at this red spot here, and it'll trim if you let your machine trim jumps, and then it'll tie on to the outer outline up here. That's where the outer outline starts. So there's going to be a scissor there. So then you're like, well, if this mesh is ending here on the inner circle, then I'll put the inner circle after the mesh. So highlight the inner circle and watch what happens. These scissors will go away when I move it, because this spot here, which is the starting and ending of this inner circle, it's the starting and the ending, is the same spot as the ending of this mesh. So let me just hold my left mouse, slide, let go, insert before, the scissors are gone. So when this mesh finishes at this spot, this red dot, the mesh finishes right here, the inner outline starts in that exact same spot because the scissors went away. Meaning we don't even have to create a connection. We don't have to do anything. These two objects are going to stitch seamlessly. Now when the inner gets done, that's another story, because you know it's going to end here as well as begin there. I don't know if I showed that, so let me hit edit. So, and you could see there's still a yellow dot up here. This spot right here is a beginning and an ending of the outer outline. So, but at any rate, this inner outline, I didn't zoom in too much. I just don't want to lose too much of what's going on. So this inner outline, if I hit the home button, it doesn't move. If I hit the end button, it doesn't move, because it's an outline. So, and it's a closed outline, a closed shape outline, basically. Whoops. So, oops. So it begins, hit it again, Control E. Oops, I'm on the wrong one. I'm on the outer one. Enter. Control E. So this inner one begins and ends in the same spot. Now, if you didn't want to be confused, you really don't want your outlines, this outline, to begin and end in different spots, because then it wouldn't be closed or it would overlap itself. So you just kind of have to leave this, which is fine. That's where they should begin and end. They shouldn't begin and end on a corner, by the way. That makes a messy corner. You want it to begin and end in a little bit from a corner. So let's enter or check out of that. So then from the inner box to the outer box, okay, yeah, we're going to have this jump here. And if you want to view jumps, you can hit this jump symbol down here, and there it is. You see the jump. We can't add a connection because you can't hide that connection. It's stitching over your mesh. So it's a jump. So the mesh will stitch seamlessly. It will connect seamlessly to the inner box. There's no scissors. And then when that's done, when the inner box is done, it'll tie off. Trim if you want, but I just let my machine jump for these kinds of things because it makes a cleaner tie on. If I'm doing this though as a quilt and a hoop, I'd probably let it jump because I bury my long threads. But at any rate, so it'll stitch the inner, tie off, jump to the outer, make a tie on, and then stitch the outer. And then when the outer is done, if you want a long thread, then you can put another stitch far away. So, you know, on your quilt block. If you don't want to mess up the centering of your design, you would really want to put your little stitch for jumping at the end. You'd want to put that within the boundaries of your design somewhere. So maybe if there's no stitching here or something, you could put it right about here. Because for centering and stuff, if you go outside, then your design gets bigger and it's off center and everything. So, so I'll click on this and I'll just put it in here. And then I'll hit enter. And then I don't want this to have ties and everything because it's just serving as a jump for me. And so if I go to, so I want to convert it to a manual stitch, but convert to editable stitches is not, it's grayed out. So if I want to convert to manual right away, all I have to do is make sure this is highlighted, generate it. Okay, so I generated the stitches. Now when I go to convert, editable stitches is black. So click it. There's my editable stitches. Basically, they're manual stitches. So now I'll delete this one. In the manual stitches, might have been have too many stitches in them. So when I edit it, one sec, let me X out. When I click on this and hit edit, okay, it's showing me all of these stitch points and they're real tiny. Well, you don't want that if it's just serving as a jump. So you could go in, take your magnifier, and then just delete all of them except for these two, and then hit enter. The other way around this is, instead of going through all that, let me just delete that. And let me zoom out. The way around it is to just create a manual stitch using the manual stitch tool. Then you don't have to worry about converting it. So I clicked on the manual stitch tool, And I'll just click, and now these are actual stitch points in there, and I'm done. And then and you have to make it the same color because you want this object to jump to it. You don't want a color change. So click on this, set identical color. And remember, my manual stitches, if I go into params, I thought on my manual stitches that I changed them, but I might not have, and it might not have held my settings, but I thought I changed it to be like, 1.5. It won't go any bigger. And I thought I did store as default manual stitches. We'll see. Apply. And then maximum I'll leave at 5. But remember, my settings for my tie-ups for manual stitches is just one tie-up and tie on and tie off. And the tie on and tie off, yeah, they're going to be small, but there's only going to be one of them. So it's like nothing. And it'll come right out. So it'll just be that nice long thread that jumps from, if I show the jumps now again, you'll have this nice long thread that you can vary if you want. So that's a couple different ways to do that. So then this here should stitch out beautifully. So now I'll just delete these. I don't need them. And this is my lesson. I'll just Control S or save, design, save. So I have this decorative stitch as back stitch, one of my custom ESMs. So if I didn't generate this, I believe it doesn't show up on the Sew Sim. Let me hit generate right here. So now it's generated. And I'll Control A. And we'll go ahead and hit Sew Sim down here. And I'm going to pause it for a minute so that I can make sure that I have the buttons pressed here on the right that I want pressed. And what you'll notice is that when the button is pressed, it gets a little bit darker in like a pink color, but it is kind of hard to see it. So right now, if I take my cursor away, you can see that I have pause on jumps. So I wanted to pause on any jump stitches. You can see a scissor up here is a jump. So I have that clicked. And then this is a color change. So these are all the same color. So I don't have that checked. I wouldn't need that checked anyways. Maybe sometimes I would, but this is to pause on a backward path. That's if you have something that's branched. And if you think about it, let's see, our outline, our two outlines, they are not branched. And let me go back because now I am drawing a blank. Let me hit the stop button over here. And if I click on, okay, so if I click on the mesh, you can't tell, just by looking down here that there's any backward paths because this is like a mesh object, almost like a motif, so you don't really notice or see that, yes, you are stitching over the quote-unquote travel stitches. So you're not going to see that on the mesh. Now this one here, this entire outline is a backward path. There's no travel stitches. We didn't have to connect anything, any stitches in here. So this whole thing is a backward path, considered a backward path. And the same with the outer outline. So we technically don't have any backward paths that we really need to see because there's not really any branching, so to speak. So let's go back to Sew Sim. So we don't need that. Let me pause it again. And it looks like I'm starting with the outline, so it looks like I didn't have everything selected. Let me stop it. You can see up here, there's nothing up here except for one object. Yeah, I did. I only had this selected. So let me Control A, and they're all generated. And I'm in vector mode. Here I am in 3D mode. You can see it better. And Control A and then Sew Sim. And like I said, I'm going to pause it. And then the last one, the connections, if we want to see any connection stitches. So if you recall, we really didn't have any connection stitches here. This little notch up here that you see, let me go up here, this really isn't any connection stitch that we added. That's the that's when this whole strip right here is going to be the mesh, and then after the mesh, if you recall, it stops right by the inner outline, and the inner outline picks up in the very same node. That's not really a connection stitch there. We didn't have to add one, if you recall. So, but they are showing this little notch, which is kind of neat to see that there. But pressing this button, and let's see if it's highlighted. I did request to get these a little darker so we could see when they're pressed. It looks like it is pressed. If I click it again, there it's white, and now it's pink. So I'm going to have it checked just so you can see that the Sew Sim will just breeze right past this notch because it's not really a connection. It should stop on this jump though, because when the inner outline is done, then the outer outline starts with, the inner outline ends and then jumps to the outer outline. It's a mouthful. And then the outer outline stitches. And I believe this right here is the little manual stitch that I put in, the little jump to the manual stitch, I believe. I'm not totally positive because, yeah, it looks like it's a half of a scissor. So that's the jump to the very last object. That's interesting how they put it as a half of a scissor. I do have a jump to that little manual stitch. So maybe that is the jump to the manual stitch, and it just got cut off because the manual stitch is only 2 stitches, so there wasn't enough brown strip here for this picture to be fully printed or, showing on the screen. I'm not sure. But at any rate, so we'll go ahead. So it's going to pause on this jump, and Uh, it should pause on this jump, but you're probably not going to notice it. But so I'll go ahead and hit run. It's stitching at, let me start it over again. This here just means color change, so that's just the beginning of the object. So it's gonna start over here with the mesh. So it starts on that outer outline over here at the top. So I'll hit run. And so the travel stitches are gonna show kind of in a lighter brown. And then when it stitches over them, because remember the mesh is 2 layers, you can kind of see it gets a little darker. It would be nice to see the needle moving. I can't remember if I requested that. I don't think I did. But that would be something good to request, to see the needle actually stitching, to show the needle. Because now you saw like right here, it got darker. That's where it's stitched over itself, but it's not real easy to see. But so I'll speed it up. Oh, sorry, it's stitching down there. That is a work of art, let me tell you. It is just beautiful. And so now it's stitching over itself in a lot of places. So it's kind of hard to see where it's stitching at. Okay, so it's coming to that little notch up there, and that's where it's going to end right here, and then just continue on with this inner outline. And now it'll make the jump, and that's when it stopped, because I told it to stop on the jump. And now it jumps to the outer. And I'll hit run. And it stitches that. I'll speed it up a little. And then it looks like it is pausing there. I think if I hit run, you can see over here it's on 13,091, and there's 13,101 stitches total. So that right there tells you we have 10 more stitches that need to be stitched. So this is the the jump or what have you that is going to jump down to these manual stitches. So I'll click run, and you'll see, I'm sorry, from here, it's going to jump down and stitch that manual stitch so that I have that long thread to bury. So I'll hit run, and there it jumped, and it stitched it real quick. It was only 2 stitches. And then here's your stop button. And I think you can hit escape. No, it's not working. So, oh yeah, it did. So escape worked. So there you go. I'll hide the jumps again. I know this is supposed to be like a basic intro to how to make the background mesh, but there's, you know, little things that I just wanted to make you aware of, that if I didn't include them, it wouldn't really be a complete lesson. So then, like I said, next time we'll go to, let's hit save. Uh, I'll get into more complicated designs. And one of them that I wanted to make sure that I do is this one. This is the one where, you know, the echo is perfect and it's perfectly pointy, just like the flower. And that's because I made it in studio as opposed to making it in editor. And I think I posted this on the Facebook groups. Oh, not this one. So this is what I showed on Facebook, is the difference between making your outline in editor, because you're contouring around this jagged arrowhead. So this is what you got. And even your stitches aren't as pretty as they are when you create the mesh background in studio. Studio's on the right. And you could see how perfect the echo is in studio. So I did want to make that as one of my videos as well. And like I said, it would be probably a purchase to purchase video, because it is more complicated than what I showed you today, even though today's video was very long. So if you did want to get, you know, studio, if you only have basic, be sure to go to my website, WeQuiltStudio.com, and click on the bird to get the coupon code. And I'll have links for that down in the description as well. And then there's also a video on how to use the code and how to navigate the Embird website. So it's just such a powerful program, and for the price, you cannot beat it. You're not paying $1,200 because you want to digitize. You're paying under $350. I think it's about $330 with the coupon to get the modules that you need to digitize successfully. Basically, what you need is Embird Basic. The modules you need is digitizing tools. I would get Font Engine as well, and then Iconizer, so you could see your pictures and thumbnails in Windows Explorer. So all that you get for $330 instead of being nickeled and dimed like some softwares. They drag you along because you're a beginner and you don't realize you need this other module, and then by the time you're done, you're over $1,000 into it. So my passion is to help people, and so they don't get led astray and, you know, have to spend all that money. And you don't even get snap to nodes in these other programs, whereas Embird, you have snap to nodes, and that's so important. The other softwares, they only have snap to grid or snap to guidelines. Well, everybody has that. You need snap to nodes, believe me, especially when you're editing, because you use snap to nodes for when you want to fix an object, but yet you don't want to lose the integrity of the object. So you just copy and paste it so that one you're snapping to and the other one is you're going to be your final. So you're snapping to an exact replica when and where you want. You can unsnap and snap and whatever. You can snap to the object outline. You could snap to the node itself, to both, to one or the other. It's just so powerful. So anyways, there you have it. So I hope this is